Hey everyone. On this week's episode, we have Celeste Flynn and Sara Laird, and they are part of the team behind the nonprofit, the Phoenix Advocates. They have a truly powerful message, and they deliver it in a very raw and meaningful way. And we discuss the mission of the group and how it stemmed from losing their husbands in fires from 2018 and 2021. We lean in on a lot of hard topics, and we are able to learn from them as they unpack their lived experiences in a really graceful way. So though this is not one that you want to miss, we will be experiencing life lessons through their lens. So please be mindful and prepared for the hard topics to come. If you'd like to get some more background on the 2018 fire that claimed the life of Lieutenant Nathan Flynn, I would first encourage you to listen to the episode number 15 and possibly even episode number 2. In the show notes, I will have attached links so you can see and support their mission. So please give them a follow and please consider supporting them and their upcoming events. Thank you.
2-2 on the scene. I've got heavy fire, one trap on the second floor, hanging on the window.
The Forged and Unbroken podcast.
So the Phoenix Advocates, this is a fairly new venture, right? Probably within the last year.
In the last 6 months or so, we've really kicked it off. Conceptually, about a year in the making, but officially for the last 6 months, I think. Right before we hit it really hard right after Thanksgiving, between Thanksgiving and Christmas last year.
Yeah, cool. And it is a nonprofit and born out of, obviously, your family's tragedies and line of duty deaths, and also with Baltimore City, right? It's the Lacayo.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. I want to make sure I had that right.
Yeah. Kind of our tagline has been from the ashes of our grief, working for change. So it's it's referencing back to the fact how the three of us came together and how we met, and then going from there. So it's the Flynn, Laird, and Lacayo Memorial Foundation.
Yeah, that's amazing. What is the driving mission for the Phoenix Advocates?
Kind of a 3-part mission. So it's based on education, awareness, and action. So it's a matter of whatever messages we have related to the lessons that came out of how our guys died, how we can take that forward either through awareness initiatives, through specific training pieces, or in the ways of legislation, if we can make any impacts locally or across the state for law changes.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I'm sure we'll get into some of the legislation stuff here on the back end, talking about that. But you've just recently had some events also, right, for like fundraising, and I got the T-shirt and the coin, which is amazing. Yeah, that was, you just recently were at Baltimore City's Union Hall, right?
We had a St. Patrick's Day party there,
yeah.
So that's that's the hard part, I think, for us more so than anything. It's trying to solicit the support and the fundraising efforts. It doesn't come naturally to me. Yeah. Sarah's a bit more vocal in that way. We work well together. It's a good balance, right? But she doesn't have any problem speaking up and asking for those kinds of things. I'm more of a, hey, we got these cool T-shirts. Do you guys want to buy one? Or we got these coins. So we're trying to appeal to the fact that you guys like T-shirts and the coins. And so it works, but it doesn't happen in a vacuum. So we have to keep with the fundraising parts of it too, because we are traveling to do these different conferences and things. We're paying our own way at the moment. So it'd be nice to eventually be able to support some of that stuff through the fundraising and have that, that money there to help us go out with the messages.
Sure. And you were just talking about that just a couple minutes ago. Like you were just recently at FDIC. And is the ATF, or I guess, sorry, not ATF, fire investigation thing in Vegas?
Correct.
Yeah. Could you just briefly speak on that? Like, what was it that you were talking about, like who you were with? Because you said you were creating awareness just for industries that are attached to us. Like when you were talking about the investigators only half knowing about maybe CSST, excuse me. You just like give us the cliff notes on like your experiences out there.
Yeah. So the first week we were in Las Vegas, and it was the IAI conference, and we have a whole group of us that go. So Adam St. John with the ATF, he's fantastic. And without the work he has done, we probably wouldn't be able to be doing what we're doing. Yeah. Jeremy Nagel, Craig Matthews, and then Celeste and and we presented, had a 4-hour keynote session there, and it was really telling. We go in a room and ask the investigators, how many of them are aware of CSST or know what it is, and only half the hands in the room went up, and I kind of guess that probably some of those hands shouldn't have really been up.
But they looked at the guy next and like, oh, I have to raise my hand.
But it's disheartening, but it also is part of this puzzle and part of why CSST remains such a problem, because people aren't aware, and that awareness has to come from multiple avenues. And investigators often hear it's a lightning strike, and they just, okay, it's act of nature, act of God, and they move on, and they never go look at it.
Yeah. That's super interesting.
So, but it was a really good experience. We had lots of good feedback from that session, and it encourages us to keep going. Like sometimes, we're like, oh, what are people going to think of this? Here's these widows coming in here to talk about this stuff. But the feedback was really good. And then the following week, we went to FDIC. Billy Goldfeder was kind enough to gift us 2 hours of his 4-hour time slot because we had missed the submission date. And so Celeste and I deliver a 2-hour version of the 4-hour session that we do with Adam.
Okay.
And that also was tremendous. There's 36,000 people registered for FDIC. We were at a pre-conference session for 2 hours with maybe 75 or 80 people in the room. I thought, okay, we're gonna leave this session today and we'll just fade into the woodwork while we're here. And that was not the case. Like, I think every one of the 80 people that was in the class found us on the street, in a bar, in a restaurant, somewhere in that time. And we had people coming up to us and saying, I think I was on one of these fires. What do I do? Like, we kept telling them it was a gas-fed fire, but nobody was listening to us. Or I have pictures. I have been on one of these fires, but I just thought it was a one-off. I didn't know it was a thing. And so that's why we're going to continue doing what we're doing.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And just to kind of catch up, the ATF piece that we're talking about, that's it's a training video that Adam St. John put together based on the years and years of investigation and analysis from the fire that killed Nate. Taking the origin and cause report and then blowing that out completely across the lab work that was done to support all of it, to kind of back into what they thought happened that night with the lightning strike, the CSST failure, and then the fire. And then the comparisons that he was able to draw from that fire to Josh's fire, and how these they behave similarly, how these risks are similar, how the signs were similar, just to kind of, again, push that message out there that you can look at these things and see when you respond to certain calls that, hey, this feels familiar and this is why. And it kind of points back to these reference materials. So again, it's getting that information out there to the people that are going to be the first on the scene so that they can respond hopefully differently and protect themselves and their crews better.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like you said, it's the information's getting out there. It's a slow process. I know even from the fire side of it, it's getting out there, it's helping, but there is so much more work to be done. And that's exactly what you're doing. So, and circling back to Phoenix Advocates, this is helping you do the traveling, do the presenting, to get the word out, to support this cause. Yeah.
I mean, I've been active in speaking on things that I could since Nate's death. Fortunately through the Howard County department, the administration there's been very cooperative and collaborative with me over the years. To do. You've done a training program for us 1 year for the Nate Flynn Training Day. So it was important to me all along to be doing things like that in his honor and making sure that the information was being pushed and shared. I think I said from the very beginning, like, I wanted to know as much as I could know about what happened that night. Like, not to pick it apart. I mean, even if he'd done something wrong, I wanted to know all the pieces of it because I had to understand it. That's just kind of how I work. Meeting Sara when Josh's fire happened, it's like we were the same mind. So we started working together on this and then digging deeper. And then when you've got two heads into it, you can really make some progress. So it's been a big push since the two of us started working on it together. And that's, again, where people are asking us, can you come talk here? Can you do this there? It's like, well, sure. Eventually we need to figure out how to do this the right way, though. And that's where the foundation came into it.
Awesome. That's a heavy burden. That's a lot to ask of you. And I know we kind of touched on that a little bit, like I don't mean to put words in your mouth, to go through the process of not just the travel and finding time away from the family and going to these events, but then living through that process again and being asked questions, also not finding out how much there's work there still is to be done, I'm sure that it can take a toll. I'm sure that can be taxing.
We made a joke at FDIC last couple weeks ago. We look across the room as the materials being discussed, or as we're playing certain parts of Adam's the ETF video, and you see guys tearing up and dabbing their eyes on their shirt sleeves and whatever. And we joke that we're going to start prefacing the entire presentation. It's like, if we catch you crying, you're buying us beers afterward, because we managed to stand up here and do it without crying at this point. I mean, there's still times when we get a little choked up, but if we can do it, then you can do it too.
I was good until I looked out and they're all, so then when they're all starting to cry, I'm like, well, crap, now I'm going to cry.
It's a reaction. Like, you can't help it. It's like you look at people being moved by it. But I think too, like Sara was saying, we're not firefighters, we're not trainers, we weren't part of this community like this before. We were wives. But I think hearing things from us, the emotional impact of it, we hope at least that it helps it stick a little harder. And it makes people want to take the story and tell it to other people too, because they're emotionally moved by it.
Yeah. I think that makes it more relatable. It makes it more raw, that you are this vested in it, and you are not necessarily firefighters. You weren't in the service. Like you said, you had your own lives separate from all
we
this.
had careers and lives, and we were busy with our days. They would go to work and come home, and we maybe talk about it over coffee the next day, what happened the day before. Something big happened, we obviously would know about it, but it was just, we both had our own jobs basically. And then when we were home.
And I think for us too, I mean, so we also do the line of duty death planning session, where we kind of talk to people about what it really looks like if something were to happen to you on the job.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of bad information and misconceptions, and I fell into that. Celeste fell into that. None of us were prepared. And one of those things is neither of us have the careers that we had before our husbands died. And it's the official psychological term or whatever is that it's a secondary loss. But it's a real thing. Like I worked really hard for my career, and have made it to the executive level. And that's not something you can maintain when you go through something like we did. So this has kind of become our work now. It's what gets us out of bed in the morning. It's what motivates us. And it's all because, one, we both have a lot of people still close to us that are on the job. And so, for my children, I was telling you, some of the guys in Frederick are kind of surrogate dads to them. And I can't have anything happen to any of them. So there's that. And just the fact that, we've looked and seen all the information, like we don't want to have another firefighter have another spouse, that we have to pull into this circle, who die from a CSST related fire that could have been preventable by training and knowledge and education.
Sure. Yeah. I was able to catch a little bit the first part of your all's Key City conference. And the first thing I sincerely appreciate is that everybody had a beer in hand. You broke the mold, so thank you. Thank you for that. But I was totally in the back. I mean, obviously I'm just now coming into meeting you. I've known Celeste now for a little bit, for a handful of years now, and to see, first time hearing parts of that message, and there were still people tearing up from that. But I appreciate how you were right out the gate. Let's bring the temperature down. We're going to have a beer in hand, and we're going to get through this. So
because it's a vulnerable conversation too, right? All of this for us comes with some degree of vulnerability. We have to be able to put ourselves out there in a way, because it is emotional stuff. Even the benefits discussion can be like that, because there's some of the gaps and things that happen in the process. It's something to think about, right? So it's and we're admitting where we may have screwed things up, which is important for people to understand, because I was a project manager. I'm a planner by nature. Navy first responder, planner by nature. We still didn't have a good plan. There were still things that we missed, and we thought we had everything covered. So it's it can happen. It can happen to anybody. Just like line of duty death can happen to anybody. It's
Sure.
You can protect yourself or think you're insulated from it as best as you can be, but anything can happen. And that's kind of what we're hoping that message brings to people. It's like you can think you have all of your ducks in a row. And something can happen, and you're like, oh shit, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I did not plan for this. We didn't plan initially. When we were talking, each year open enrollment would come around, and we would look at the life insurance options. We would look at the different things, and we'd have the discussion. And Nate and I would make choices based on what was happening in our lives. At any point in that, did I ever think that if anything happened to him, I'd have to leave my job. It was just because you just can't keep up with all of it. We've got 3 small kids and life that happens too. Plus, there's a lot of because of the types of line of duty deaths and just in general, what people don't consider is how the demands on the family, and I don't mean this in a negative way, so I always have to be careful how I say it. It's not that we are resentful of it, but it's every month there's a memorial or something that you're being asked to attend, or you're getting a new report this month, or you're meeting with the investigators, or you're the ATF in our case, or you're going to go visit the lab, or they're going to do a trial burn to prove out some theory from the investigation report. So it's you're part of this whole process. I mean, by choice, I think for us too, because we wanted to be in the know, but regardless of that choice, you're still part of this now larger community where you're sucked into a lot of different things where it does kind of become your life for a period of time. And then by choice, we've picked up more responsibilities along that way because, if we're going to be put in a situation, then we're going to try to make it our way. So we've decided we're going to control that part of it, and by virtue, bring this this whole thing together and do it our way.
And we're still living it too. I think that's the other thing. Like, August will be 3 years since Josh died, but this is not something that goes away like ever. So there's constantly, I'm still rating on a NIOSH report. There's constantly, benefits still change. Like you still have to follow up on that. I have kids that are getting ready to go to college and trying to navigate all of that and then finding out the things that I was told aren't true, that the benefits I thought were going to be there for college aren't there. And now trying to regroup and figure out, okay, well now what do we do? How do we pay for college? And then even just the emotional side, my oldest will be a senior next year. And you look like she plays sports, she does chorus, she's National Honor Society, and every one of those things has a senior event. And every one of those things her dad won't be at. And then it's making do I call and ask one of those other guys to come? Who's the right person to come? Like, we are still living it. I mean, Celeste's kids are younger, and she's still got all those years of that stuff that we still, And
that's kind of why it's been important to me, too, from all of the elements of it. The kids Brecken had just turned 3 in June. Nate died in July. The twins turned 5 in August. So in the middle of all this, like 3 and 5 years old, they're going to go to kindergarten. Their dad dies, and Brecken doesn't have a lot of his own memories because he was so young. The twins have a handful of good, solid memories. And Brecken will come to me sometimes. Remember that time that Daddy did this? And he was 6 months old. There's no way. But he's heard the twins tell that story a few times. So he's kind of taken that, and that's his own memory, which is fine. But when they're involved, a lot involved in the things that we do, and then when they can, they come with us and they meet the people that we're working with, or they go to the different locations with us, and they enjoy that. And it's always fun for me because there's always somebody there that I've either not talked to a lot before or hasn't seen the kids before, and they'll swoop in and have some story to tell them. Or they'll be like, oh, your dad used to love to do this. And it's like, I didn't know that. I wouldn't have known that. Or they'll have something that they want to show them that, references back to Nate in some way. So they're getting more memories because of the involvement and because I'm keeping them enclosed in that community and in that circle. So it's nice for them in that way. And it also just kind of, it just forces them to think about it and remember when they could easily just forget some things, which is, the harsh reality, because he was so into being a dad, and so looking forward to those little reminders that happen after the fact. Like you get the Google Calendar pop up, or they had just instituted the whole 4-hour leave policy for Howard, where you could do blocks of leave as opposed to taking half days. And he'd seen the school calendar. He put in for the first day of school and the first day on the bus and all these different times that he'd put in for different leave things, and they were on the calendar, and as they're popping up, it's like, he should be here. This is not right that he should be here. So, it's tough still. Some of those things are still tough. And report cards come, and it's like, oh, Tegan got straight A's again. Nate would be so proud of her.
Yeah. Asking maybe a hard question because we're at different stages in life with kids. You said your youngest is in her senior year?
No, my oldest, next year she'll be a senior.
Next year, okay.
Yeah, my oldest.
Senior. looking ahead, I can see how we have everything from, you were in the kindergarten era, and now you're looking at potentially like the term being used, empty nester. Mm-hmm. How does that play into your psyche right now?
I mean, I feel a lot lost some days.
Sure.
Because of that. Because, I think the analogy I came up with was like, when Josh was here, we had a map, and we were in the car, and we didn't have an exact path, but we knew we were going to take one of 2 or 3 kind of main roads, and we were heading that direction, right? Yeah. And right after he died, I felt like I was in that car, it was out of gas, and the map got erased. And now I'm in the car, I have some gas, I have no path, and I'm aimlessly just driving around with no destination.
You're drawing the map right now.
Yeah,
where you're going.
I don't know.
Everybody needs to use the bathroom.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, it's really to be middle-aged and all of a sudden, like, not have the career I had, not have the partner I had, mm-hmm. not have some of the friends and family I had. Mm-hmm. Some days that's a tough thing. I mean, by nature, I'm a survivor, so like I'm not gonna let it knock me down. And some days I'm like, oh, maybe I'll go to law school, and then other days like, no, maybe I'll just go sit on beaches. So I don't know. But for now, I'm doing this. Like, we're doing the nonprofit, and this is what we're doing, and we're gonna continue to do that for as long as it needs to be done. And mm-hmm. I'm just trying to take life as it comes and hope that I figure out which road I need to be on.
Yeah. As I was saying a couple minutes ago, it was one of those cases like where you're put in this position, and you have a choice that you can make with it, right? You can sit there, and I'm not knocking how anybody else handles grief, because everybody has their own process, and everybody in this community that we're in with the firefighting survivor community. You can do it differently too. That you don't have to. We're not a textbook example of how it's done. Just to kind of caveat the whole thing, but we are of the nature that if we're given this, or put into the situation, that we're going to try to preserve ourselves, control it, whatever we can do with it. So that's, we're not going to sit still and just be sad. In Nate's case, like, he loved life. He loved living life. He would be mad at me if I was just sitting home crying and being in my emotions, being sad about all of it, and not doing something. Now, he wouldn't require me to be positive, pushing this message out there, but still living and going forward in some way. I think that's kind of, we have to have something that we're working for, though, to do that. And that's what this work kind of gives us. It gives us that motivation to keep pushing through some of the stuff. And, and we're still getting information. We're still learning about all of it, which is important to us. And I think the first time I met you, it was probably a couple weeks after the fire, and I wanted to talk to all the different teams, and I said I want to talk to the RIT team, and I go into 7 and I wait for you guys to get back. I think you guys were out on a call when I got there, and I talked to everybody and asked questions, and it was hard, but I had to have information. I had to know, and I wanted to know from the people that were there with him, the people that saw him first, and people that were there to save him, what all happened that night. And it's, we're still learning things. We're still getting information, and we're still, I think in some way, getting some closure out of it. I had a lot of anger and bitterness about certain parts of how things happened that night, up until I sat through the full 4-hour facilitated discussion last summer with Adam that he did in Frederick, where he went through everything with the timeline, everything with all of the details, all of the, the data that surrounded it all. And it kind of gave me that full picture. I knew the story, I knew parts of the story, but I hadn't seen it layered together like that to tell the story. And that for me finally was like, okay, I can let go of this, because I have this fact now that I can hold on to instead. And
keep in mind, that was five years later. Yeah. Just over 5 years later. Yep. So that's 5 years of trying to piece together the different stories and layer them yourself. That's a long time.
Yes, it was. It was.
And we are all still trying to figure out our own stories, so to speak. Like, we'll still talk with other people we don't necessarily get to hang out with as much, and somebody might make a comment that they thought was just common knowledge, like, oh, I actually didn't know that,
Yeah.
And then you start picking that apart. The things years later are still unfolding and happening. Not that we're skipping ahead at all, you kind of set it up a little bit talking about the benefits in that process. So I know part of what you speak on is we'll go the formalities route first of the things that you had to experience with documentation and the benefits. And I know that you are maybe to some degree subject matter experts now on that. What were some of the, struggles, hardships, or just learning that you have gone through with this? Because I know that there were tons of curveballs getting thrown at you. Some things were dialed in and people had processes for it. Like you said, there were tons of surprises and just wrong information. What does that look like?
I mean, we have a 2-hour session on this. So.
Okay, yeah, right. So let's do benchmarks.
The whole slideshow.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many things, and like I said, we're still, both of us
learning,
are still in it, and we're still having to traverse all of those things, and forever. Like, I still haven't figured out how my Social Security is going to work. Like, am I eligible for early Social Security? But, like, am I not? Do I pull his? I don't know. That's a down the road thing. Figure it out. But, some of the things. One of the things that to me I remember that really stood out that I think is like really not known. Josh was an organ donor. So I had gotten home from the hospital the day he died, and I don't know if it was late. It was 11 o'clock at night maybe, and I got a call from the hospital, and they wanted to know if he was an organ donor and did I want to donate his organs, and I was like, yes, absolutely, like that would be amazing. And that resulted in like 6 more phone calls, and it was a roller coaster of. I got a phone call back. Oh, sorry, just kidding. You can't donate his organs because in order to be eligible for the federal benefits, we have to do the autopsy, and so we can't donate his organs. And then that was sad and pissed me off. And then like an hour or two later, I get another phone call back. Just kidding, we can donate some of his organs. I mean, that's just one of many things, but that's one that stands out for me.
So many ups and downs, just all the time with all the different things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, for me, it was the biggest miss, I guess, was, again, we'd sit down each year, open enrollment. Okay, we have twins. Let's look at the policies and things. How are we going to adjust this? Mm-hmm. And we did the paperwork, and we changed life insurance elections and things like that. And then we had Brecken, changed it again. And then when it's all said and done, the beneficiary designation had been pushed through. So it didn't matter to me, like at that stage, like I wasn't the beneficiary on it because, we weren't married when he was first in the department. So it's, you think that you're covered. You think that you've got things locked up. It's good to go. If anything happens, this is a no-brainer. It just happens. And it doesn't happen like that. And you're just like, whoa, like that was a quarter of the plan. Like, what do I do now? And it creates drama and tension that you just don't really need right then. And it's, we did the paperwork. So it's like, why would we make these things and do these other processes and not have it go all the way through the process? Like, did we miss something along the way? Like, what happened? And he was the first line of duty death for the department, so career line of duty death for the department. So they had to go back and look at their own processes at that stage. And then I think now the review and the verification for that happens on a more routine basis. It's forced to say, look at your paperwork, make sure this is all correct. Like, here is the official one. Make sure it's good to go, and you've got the right people's names on there should anything happen to you. So it pushes some change, but not without a lot of pain and frustration on my part. You never know. Relationships being what they are anyway, it may have damaged some relationships. It may have just accelerated some damage to some relationships. I mean, I don't really know, but it's people handle grief differently, and it's hard. And the whole family dynamic does shift when things like that happen. I think what the overwhelming majority of the people that we know in this community have strained relationships with their in-laws in that case, and it just becomes an issue, and certainly for me that's been a challenging issue, and it's regrettable, but it's it's one of those other losses that, like Sara mentioned a few minutes ago. You just lose people along the way, but you pick up people too. It's like the community that we picked up within the survivor community within the departments, people that you've become friends with and become close with. It just, it fills everything out.
Yeah. I feel like just the human element, when you hear about a death in a family, I can just speak to my own experiences like that. You see the real person shows up, and you can see the ugliness with a lot of that. And then I can only imagine going through a line of duty death, how that just accelerates it exponentially. If there were, like you said, I know you have like a 2 to 4 hour presentation on this. If you could just pick apart some of the biggest lessons, or like, if God forbid, if anybody were ever involved in this same thing and they're listening to this, if you were like, when you say make sure the paperwork's correct, like, are we talking the wills,
all
the beneficiary? Like, you need to go through every bit of documentation, banks, like all these things to make sure that the ducks are in a row, because if not, it's a hardship.
Exactly. I think having a will, a good will, can solve some of the problems. You can clearly establish who the designated next of kin is in that case, who the assumed beneficiary should be for some things. But the paperwork that belongs with like the departmental insurance policies and things like that, that's a separate process. But I think if you have the will, we're not lawyers, we're not estate planners, but with the will and that being properly filed and signed and all of the things that go along with that, you could probably have a legal leg to stand on for some of the other issues and fight the case differently than just say, well, hey, why do you think that I wouldn't be on that piece of paper?
Right, I'm married to this
right,
person. Right,
exactly. So I think that that solves some of the problems. But again, having that information for the bank information, the passwords for certain things, not every family does their banking in the same account. You might have separate accounts. You might have credit cards that the other one doesn't deal with. Having that information together, knowing what you're legally responsible for too, is important. And looking at it frequently. So you could be divorced and you could be remarried, and something happens to you, and you come to find out your new wife finds out that your old wife is still on your pension, or whatever, or you didn't keep your previous children on something, and now your previous children are cut out from benefits. So it's just that whole, it's not just a one and done thing. It's a making a point to review it on a annual basis.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have the conversations too. It's not a conversation anybody wants to have. Right. I will say that Josh and I had conversations, but only very much in passing and kind of jokingly. So all I knew that he wanted was, I knew he didn't want to be worm food. So I knew he wanted to be cremated, but that was it.
Yeah.
And then people, they started coming out with me like, well, who do you want to be, pallbearers? I'm like, pallbearers? What? I have no idea. Like, what's the right answer? And you want to do things right, and you want to honor their wishes, but you don't know their wishes. So having those conversations, revisiting those conversations. And then I think the other big piece too is not making assumptions, and that's why having the paperwork is so important. Families do change. You think that, and I think one of the biggest ones we've seen, you think, if you have a second wife and you think the second wife and your kids have the best relationship, I will tell you, I've seen many cases where, I would actually say 90% of the time, if something happens to you, that relationship will not be what it is a year out. And so making sure your wishes are documented legally, that you're protecting people. There are ways to do this. Because we are in the survivor community, we have an opportunity to talk to lots of other survivors, and we hear their stories. And one of the most, and one of the things we'd like to do eventually with the nonprofit, if we're able to raise enough funds, there's people that fall through the cracks in line of duty death. Fiancés and children.
Yeah.
And sometimes the children, it's that scenario where, you remarried, everything, it's your wife, so you leave everything to your wife, but that relationship falls apart, and you think that spouse is going to take care of your kids from your last marriage, and it doesn't happen. And then you end up with these kids who end up with a little bit of nothing. And even some end up with even less, because it depends on the department. Some departments don't pay into Social Security. So if they're self-funded and the beneficiaries are set up, those kids are getting nothing. And so, that's something we hope to be able to do, is maybe assist some of those kids, even just to make sure they, even if it's here's money to help you go on a class trip you want to go on, or, be able to have some of the things that their parent would have wanted them to have, because some of those kids fall through the cracks. But it's having the conversation.
And it's the holistic conversation too. It's like, where's your health insurance currently coming from? If something happens to, your firefighter and they carry the health insurance, is the family going to be without coverage? Is that health insurance going to go away? Or is there, stay in the case, you guys know you work demanding schedules. Traditionally, if you've got small kids, your spouse has a flexible schedule that supports your 24 hours or your 48-hour shifts or whatever those are. Is that spouse going to be able to get a job that has health insurance if they lose that health insurance? Or is the department going to do something to help ensure the family doesn't have any gap in coverage? It's just thinking through all the different ways that you could be impacted by it, not just the salary or the person. It's all the things that kind of come along with it.
It's for volunteers too, right? This is career or volunteer firefighters. It goes across the whole thing. And finding out what happens, what your state laws are. Every state is different. Maryland is terrible on workman's comp. I didn't get any workman's comp when Josh died. But other states, I know widows that are getting workman's comp payments for the rest of their lives. And, Frederick, when Josh died, I got moved to retirees health insurance. And I was like, wait a second. He didn't retire. He died. And now you're going to put my health insurance premium, you're going to charge me more? Fortunately, that was fixed. The union worked with the county, and they've addressed that. Okay. But it's just one of those things that until it happens, and even when it's maybe happened before, not everybody's like Celeste and I and Clara and won't speak up and say, hey, I have a problem here. So it's multifaceted. It's a lot. Sure. But I think the reason people don't do it is because the conversation is uncomfortable. So if you can have the conversation, getting the paperwork done, the easy part.
And part of what we say too is like, it's not just, the firefighter and the spouse's responsibility. I mean, the heart of it is, but it's, if you're sitting there at the breakfast table and you hear one of your coworkers talk about getting married, and it's like, oh, that's awesome. Like, have you put your fiance on your paperwork? Have you talked to your fiance about this? It's kind of pushing the conversation to them too, as the life lesson maybe they haven't thought of those things yet, or if they're getting divorced, or if they're having a baby, any of those things. I mean, you live with them for 24 hours at a time. You know a lot about these people. It's helping making sure that they're taking care of their families as well. Because if not, you're going to be there to clean up the mess if anything happens to them. So it's just, keeping the dialogue going and not making it something that we just don't talk about.
There's so many layers to it. And as you've learned, sometimes you don't even know what those layers are until something sneaks up on you. Yeah. So a lot of progress through your all's pain. But kudos to you also for, I guess, leading the charge and opening your mouths, because, like you said, so many people are just like, okay, I guess this is just the way it is, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And
it's a hard conversation to have. It's embarrassing in some cases. You think like, oh, you've got your paperwork taken care of, you pay your bills, you whatever. But then when you've got to acknowledge, like, well, we didn't make sure that was done correctly. It's like, now I've got to have this argument or have this fight or just not do this because I'm not the right person for it. But being able to talk about that to people and say, look, we had 80% of this done the right way. We thought we were good, but here's how we messed up. And being able to tell those stories and talk about the ways that we've, kind of dropped the ball, I think is part of why it's impactful too.
Yeah, sure. This next part, if you're willing, will help lead into some of the next lines of like topics I wanted to cover, and it's walking it back a little bit for the notification. Most people's only experience with that might be what's, for a lack of better words, what's almost romanticized in like movies or something. We'll spend as much time as you need to on this. It can be nice and quick and tidy as much as it can be. What was that like for both of you? Because that's the initial, my life is changing right now.
So Nate's was, he died July 23rd, 2018. The fire was overnight, so it was around 2 o'clock-ish in the morning that they responded to this fire. It was one of those rare occasions where we actually talked to him and FaceTime with him the night before. So it's one of those things you look back and you're glad you had that moment. But I had taken the kids shopping, all 3 kids. We had gone to get some groceries and stuff, and it was a mess because, they were young and chaos, and it was like, summer, people were shopping for vacations and stuff. And I remember talking to him a couple times throughout the day, like, oh my God, these kids are driving me crazy. I can't wait till you're home tomorrow. He's like, oh, we're going to go out in the boat. We're going to do this and that. It was, we had the day all planned. So he was looking forward to it. So we're at the store and Tegan wanted to make a cake for him. So we get cake mix and we get icing and we got all the stuff. And I had sent him a picture of her working on the cake as I'm like doing some other things. And he's trying to text. And I'm like, hey, can you just call? Because I can't do this and help her with the cake. And so they FaceTime and she's showing him the cake. And, the last picture that I sent him was her with her little chef hat on and the finished cake. And then later on that evening, he called just to say, hey, thanks for sharing the cake. That was a lot of fun watching her make the cake. Like, I hope you guys had a good day. I know it was stressful. Tomorrow's going to be better. I'll talk to you later. And then they got hit for a hazmat call. He's like, I got to go. I love you. Talk to you later. And that was it. I didn't hear from him. I got it later on, we're back. I'm going to bed. Yeah. Text. Love you. Good night. And that was just the normal thing. So the FaceTime, the extra phone calls and stuff, that was out of the norm. And you look back, it's like a sweet memory, but it's like maybe it was for a reason. Like you just, kind of pin things together. But it was storming at home and all across Maryland. And in the house next door, I had an elderly neighbor, and the power would go out frequently in that neighborhood. Anytime I would go out, one of his alarms would go off. And so the fire department had been there a couple of times. The local volunteer department had been there a couple of times checking on him because his alarms were going off, and I guess he couldn't hear them. And so I went to bed at around midnight or so, and I hear knocking, banging on my door. Like it was like 4:30ish, I want to say, maybe close to 5. Hear banging on my front door, and I was like, nobody ever comes here. Like, what's this for? So I the top of the steps, and I'm like, who is it? And like, it's the fire department. And I was like, okay, well, it's not me, it's my neighbor. Like, he's next door, it's his alarm, it's not my alarm. Thinking that they're again there, and they're just at the wrong house. And Stacy Rule, who had worked with Nate, had been to the house for birthday parties and stuff. I knew her, and she's like, no, Celeste, it's Stacy. We need you to come answer your door. And like that instant, like I just felt lightheaded and nauseous and all the things. Like, they wouldn't be at my house if this wasn't serious. And again, I was still just thinking he was hurt. I wasn't thinking anything more than that because, the running joke with him was that he had a better chance of being hit by a car on 70 responding to a call there than dying in a fire. Just because of, how it's sprinklered, and they didn't have big fires like this. And it was, it was a bad joke, but that was the running joke. But I go down the steps and I open my front door, and I can already see all of the lights and things outside and the people that had come, all the cars, and then you see all the uniforms sitting at your front door. And I open the door, and I'm looking at them through the glass storm door, and Steve Stone and Bill Anashevsky are standing there, the chaplain and the acting chief at the time, at my front door. And I remember just grabbing the door handle because they're going to open the store. And I just grabbed the door handle from the inside and I held it. And I was like, nope, like, you're not coming in my house. And I just collapsed on my foyer. And I was holding onto the door handle. And I was like, if you come in my house, it's real. Like, this is not real. It's not happening. And so they had to get the door open and pick me up off the floor. And I'm just like, no. And, they came right out and told me there was a fire and Nate did not make it. And I was like, it's not true. It's not true. And, of course, then now the kids are up, and my boys, older boys, were downstairs in their bedrooms. They came up and they're like, what's going on? And Tegan, bless her heart, kids have a way of adding, levity to situations sometimes. The week before, Nate was out front mowing the grass, and I just Hollywooded the stop sign in front at the cross street. And I pulled up in the driveway, and I had her with me in the car. And he's like, "You better tell mommy to drive better. Like, she's going to get pulled over and go to jail." Like, it's, it's a little joke with her. Mm-hmm. And so in the middle of all this, she sees all these, guys in their white shirts and their badges and everything. And she's like, "Mommy, are you going to jail? Like, we told you to drive better. Please don't take her to jail." And I'm just like, "I'm not going to jail, baby. Like, we're going to put you back in bed." And so, of course, I can't tell the kids what's happened, right? Yeah, I told the boys, and I was like, "Can you please?" I said, "I've got to go with them. Put them back to bed. I'll call my mom, in a couple of hours when she's awake, and get her to come up." So I told the older boys what had happened, and we're all just like in shock. It's one of those, like, is this really happening kind of a moment? Yeah. And they more or less said, "Do you want to come with us to Howard General, to the hospital?" And I was like, absolutely. Just let me. And they're telling me, "Hey, grab this, grab that," trying to help me because I needed help. I think Stacy had to help me like brush my hair. It was a lot of things, just a lot of emotions, a lot of things going on, and you're still kind of like, this is not really happening. Like, this is, you're in a state of shock. And they load me into the chaplain's car, and I remember Stacy and Debbie were in the back seat. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't met Debbie yet. So, Debbie worked with Nate. They were in the academy together. She was Debbie Flynn then. Yeah. And I remember when we first started having kids, Debbie Flynn would always like these pictures. And I would always be like, "Debbie Flynn, is she a relative of yours?" He's like, no, we work together. So now she's Debbie Jenkins. It was a different name, but she's tapping me on the shoulder, trying to comfort me. And I'm like, "Your cousin Debbie." And she's like, "Huh?" And I was like, "You don't know this, but your cousin Debbie." And so I explained to her, I was like, "Yeah, I always saw you posting or commenting." I said, "I assumed that you were cousin Debbie, and I'd always just call you cousin Debbie, even after I knew who you were." I was like, this is like, everything just kind of comes full circle on you at that moment. You're like, these people are here that I don't know. I'm meeting for the first time, other than Stacy. And it's, taking me to the hospital. And then they're telling me what's going to happen when I get there. And I'm still feeling like I'm just being drug through something, right? It's like they're telling me you're going to the hospital, and everybody that was on scene is now at the hospital, and they're going to be lining up the hallways, and there's a private room we're going to take you to, and Nate's going to be in there, and there's going to be a flag draped over him, but you can spend as much time as you want with him, whatever. The chaplain will be with you. Brandon's going to meet you at the doors. They called him. He was on vacation. He was meeting us. He was Nate's regular officer. Trying to prepare you for like what's going to happen next, and you're still not prepared. They pull up, you go into the back of the hospital, and here is the shift, and they're all standing there, and like they don't want to look at me because they know what I'm walking into. Like they're all trying to be respectful, but they don't want to make eye contact, and they're upset themselves. And I have to walk past all these people down to this room at the end of the hall, and then see Nate. Fortunately, I say this in a kind of, how do you even say it right way, but fortunately Nate's fire was overnight, and it wasn't until we arrived at the medical examiner's office. I rode with him in the ambulance from Howard General to the ME's office. At that point, they had to make a decision to go underground, the parking area underneath, because the news was there, the reporters were there, and they're trying to get pictures, and they're trying to like see the family and see the dead firefighter and all this, because by then the news had been notified. So I had a little bit of insulation from some of that. I had a couple of hours to get through a couple of the processes and kind of like get some of the shock out of the way before I was bombarded with it all. Because then from then on, it was, my mom is at my house now, and there's reporters at my house. There's things happening there. My phone is ringing. People are texting. It's a whole lot that happens pretty quickly because it's very public. I had to call his family because they were out of state to let them know before they saw the news, because they knew it was going to travel fast, being on the East Coast. So, I mean, yeah, and you're instantly put in a spot where you're in a room now where you're making decisions about things. And it's, to Sarah's point a few minutes ago, it's like, I don't have answers for all of this. And even the funeral as it's going on, when I'm sitting there at the funeral, I'm like, he would hate this. Like, he would totally hate this. Like, he's going to be so mad at me. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was just that initial, like, this is not real life. This is not really happening. And then coming home that afternoon after, all of it, and having to tell the little kids because I hadn't told them anything yet, and it's like I've got to tell them because it's it's all, they can't avoid it. So I got to tell them that Daddy's not going to come home, and it's like, well, what do you mean he's not going to come home? And I remember telling him, I was like, well, Brecken didn't quite understand it, and he's like, well, where is Daddy? And I was like, it's dark at this point. I was like, he's with the stars, like Daddy's up in heaven with the stars. And you say things in moments to try to like talk yourself through it too. And I'm like, Daddy's with the stars, buddy. He's up there. And then we have a private family viewing a couple of days later, and Brecken, he's such a sweet guy, sweet little guy. He goes over to the casket, and he's standing there, and he grabs Nate's hand, and he's holding his hand, and he starts singing "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" to him. And I'm like, and somebody says, "What is he doing?" And I'm like, "He's singing." And I go over, and I'm like, and it flashes back to me that I told him that Daddy lived with the stars now. And he's singing this, "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" to him, and it's like, oh my God, I'm not gonna make it. How am I gonna get through these next couple of days? So yeah, I mean, it was definitely a day that I will never forget. Just that from beginning to end, won't forget. And like I said, the part of the saving grace for me was that I did get a couple of hours of it to myself with me and the people around me before it became chaos. And I know because I was listening to it as well when Josh's fire happened in the afternoon. You don't even get a chance to digest it before it's thrown right at you, and then you're in the middle of it all. So
yeah, I can certainly. I think our crews were pulling out as you were coming in with the black line of Suburbans, and that was a quick meeting that our crew had because Nate and I, being classmates with Debbie, knew you had kids, and there was a couple of us that also had young kids, and we're like, I'm not sure. This is no disrespect to Celeste. We're not sure we can handle that right now after what we've just been through. So we passed you on the way, right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm glad in a very roundabout way that you had that time though. And here in Frederick, my wife is from Frederick, and went through all school here, and we found our way back here. And obviously my kids are at the school right next to Josh's firehouse, and one of the guys on the RIT team with me actually called me and said, hey, I know there's a fire right down the street from you, and it sounds like there's a mayday. And so I was one of those people that was listening to it as it was happening. Just for whatever you're comfortable, you can tell me to go pound sand. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was August 11th, 2021, and I remember the day. It was sunny, hot, and that the last time I talked to him was at lunch. Our girls at the time were 12 and 14, so old enough that they could be left for a couple hours at a time. And so I only worked a few miles from home, so the days he would be at work in the summer, I would come home at lunch. So I called him on my way home to check on the girls at lunchtime, and we talked about one of my best friends from childhood. Her daughter's friends with my kids, and she was going to come stay for a week, and just making sure that was okay with him because I think it was his Kelly week, so he was going to pretty much have three girl children to entertain for a week. And I'd gone back to work, and storms started kicking up, and I knew, like, you could see outside it was getting, and I had checked the radar, and I could see these storms were coming, and I told all my staff to get out of there maybe 10, 15 minutes early to try to get ahead of the storms, and got home, and the girls and I were supposed to go shopping for a birthday gift for a friend of theirs, and we were kind of just waiting the storm out, and the storm had passed, and the sun had come back out, and I had told the girls, like, hey, we're going to get ready to go, and we have a robot lawnmower, and it had gotten stuck during the storm, and so I'd gone out to get it, and I was picking it up, carrying it back to the charger, and there was a car in my driveway, and there was a guy that lived in our neighborhood that worked for Frederick, and he said, had I heard anything? And I said, no. And he said, well, there's a fire, and I think someone's hurt, and it might be Josh, but I'm not sure. And I was like, okay. And I mean, Josh had been doing the job for a long time. So, I'd gotten the phone call before when he was like, if you hear anything, I rolled a fire engine over, but I'm fine.
Okay.
So, like, at that point, I'm thinking, okay. And then I started trying to call I stayed out in the driveway because I didn't want the kids to have any, so I found anything out. So I started trying to call a couple of the people that he works with and that I know in the department to say, hey, what's going on? And like the first 2-3 people I called, nobody answered. And then somebody called me back. And then right as he was calling me back, the fire chief was calling me. So I hung up and I got on the phone with the fire chief. And he said, that there was a fire. I don't even remember exactly what detail he had told me. But, what I knew was that there was a fire, Josh was hurt, he was getting flown, he had arrested, and that's what I knew. And I don't know if it's our brain, it's like a protection mechanism, I don't know.
Sure.
But, and so I never thought this was going to end the way it did. I thought, okay, he's hurt, and it might be bad, but like, I never thought he wasn't going to make it. So, the fire chief said he was going to send a police officer to the house to get me, and then the police officer would meet me, bring me to him, and then we would go to D.C. Because he was taken to D.C. because that's the only place the helicopter could fly because of the storms.
Oh, okay.
So, I probably had 15, 20 minutes before the police officer got there. I don't have any immediate family that's super close. So I was like, okay, what do I have to tell the kids something, and I can't leave my kids here by themselves. And so, fortunately, a surrogate grandma friend came to stay with the girls, and I put my sister en route, but she was about an hour away. And I just said, look, Daddy's hurt. I don't know any more than that, which I didn't really. And I said, I'll call you as soon as I know something. And so drove to D.C., lights and sirens, and broke every traffic law there was. And the whole time, like when I grabbed a bag quick, I put a change of clothes in it, figuring I might be there overnight, and my phone charger. Like I was just fully preparing myself for like the worst, but I wasn't. Like the worst was not anywhere in my brain.
Yeah.
So we got there, and same, everybody was lined up, and you had thought that then at that point it would have like, but it didn't, still didn't. So we got into the hospital, and they took me into this, kind of a private waiting room area, which very quickly filled with a lot of people. And then they brought a chaplain in who told me, and it's very surreal. Like it doesn't, like somebody tells you, but you're like, no, like kind of same. Like, no, like yeah, like you just can't, your brain cannot. And again, I think there's probably some science behind it. There's probably some protective mechanism your brain does.
Shock does that, right?
Yeah,
it's protecting you against.
And I just remember, I was at that point just desperate to get home to my children, because now I'm in D.C. and the kids are like, Emmitsburg, and I was just desperate to get to the kids, and I was immediately just terrified for their futures. And so fortunately, the trooper was kind enough to fly me home so I could get home quickly. And I will say, like, one thing, another thing that I would really like people to take away from this, my kids were 12 and 14, they're on social media. My kids had an idea of what had happened before I got home because of people on social media. So I will say, just, for everybody that's in the fire service, keep that in mind. Like, don't, Celeste, we get very angry about this. And I have been known to post, I think actually, I think it was Kenny's fire.
The
Baltimore City fire. I started seeing stuff posted by like departments like Hagerstown and stuff.
Everyone wants to be the first one to say,
right.
"Oh, a firefighter was killed or somebody would die."
And like, you'll see me posting. I'm like, you need to take this down. You are out of line.
Yeah.
But it is. Just think about that.
Yeah. No, thank you.
And to Celeste's point, like it was 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, starting in the afternoon. Like everybody was fully aware. And I didn't get any of that time. So, they were already, and thank Frederick was wonderful. I can't say enough about Tom Coe, and I still talk to him on a weekly, sometimes daily basis. They took care of things, and there were already police sent to my house to make sure to keep the media away and things of that nature. But it's a lot. It's a whole lot, and you have no idea. I don't even know at what point I figured out what this kind of, I mean, it was months. It was months till you kind of figure out, like, what this really means for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the first couple of days, you're just responding to things, right? So, like, you're being told where you're going to be and who's going to talk to you and what they're going to ask and what they need to know. So, for me, I'm sitting at the table at the medical examiner's office, and by then, you've got some union people there, you've got some other administration people there from the department, and I'm just me there from the family side. And they start asking you questions because they've got logistics to figure out. I mean, not taking a thing away, it's a big undertaking, right? Yeah. But they've got logistics to figure out and plans they've got to start making and people they've got to mobilize because now they've got this funeral they've got to arrange. And they're looking at me like, okay, well, where do you want to have the funeral? And it's like, I don't know. I know who I want to handle it. So I give them a name and they all pull up their iPhones and they're looking in, the map to see. And I have one of my best friends, her brother owns a funeral home and he's like a brother to me. He's been with my, part of the family forever. And it's like, I want Zelman to handle the funeral. And they pull up their phones and he's on a little one-way street in downtown historic Haverty Grace. And I'm laughing to myself thinking like, this is never going to work, but let them figure it out. And it's like, I don't care what you do, but that's the person. And the ME knows him. So he's like chuckling. He's like, good one. Like, it's like, again, those little moments that it's like things that you do remember, things that you do call out. It's like, okay, because it just was a break in it in some way. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to make them scramble for a few minutes while I collect my own thoughts.
Well played.
Yeah. It's like, little power trips where you can get them.
Yeah, and sometimes you've got to have a little bit of humor because you literally cry till there's nothing left. So I remember Tom Coe came to my house. I mean, he wasn't at the house every day, but he had come the one day and he said, okay, well, I need Josh's Class A. And so I went up to my room. I knew it was either up in our bedroom closet or it was downstairs in the basement closet. I wasn't sure where it was. And I go upstairs, and it wasn't upstairs. But Josh had this ridiculous, purple leopard print pimp suit. and so I brought that down. It was like in a suit bag. So I brought it down, and I gave that to Coe, knowing full well what I was giving him. Right. And he didn't quite know me well enough yet. And of course, this is like a highly emotional, like I'm supposed to be giving you my dead husband's Class A to bury him in. Yeah. And so there was a little like a gold chain sticking out the top. And I remember him like taking it and being like, Sara, and I couldn't even keep a straight face.
But I really appreciate that, though. You need those moments of.
I mean, it's the only way I survive. I mean, I still survive. It's how the kids cope sometimes.
I went to the funeral, Josh's funeral, and it was the first one that I'd gone to since Nate's. And I asked my second oldest son, because he was home with me. Alex was at college, and I was like, Gavin, will you go with me to this funeral? Like, I don't know that I want to go alone. And so we go, and we're sitting there with the rest of the Howard County people that had showed up, and it's like you watch the family come in. I hadn't met Sara yet, and I had listened to enough of the call as it was happening. I knew what had happened. I had reached out to say if the family wants to talk or needs anything, please point them my direction. I'm happy to. Again, not just because it was the same type of fire scene play out, but it's like once this happens. And we tell Clara this all the time too. It's like there's people along the way that you love them before you even know them because you know exactly how they feel, what they're going through, what the next year of their life is going to look like, and you're automatically like, we've got to protect that person. We've got to bring them into the fold in some way, and they just get kind of jumped into the gang at that point. But I'm watching Sara and her girls walk in and behind the cat, and I remember being that person myself, and it's like, I'm not going to make this, Gavin. Like, this is a bad idea. Why did we do this? Yeah. And then the music, they're playing like orchestra versions of rock music, and I'm like, oh,
was the instrumental
this is
version of
awesome.
Hell's Bells.
I looked at it, I was like, is this Hell's Bells? He's like, hell yeah. And I'm like, that's pretty bad. Like, that's really cool. Like,
That's awesome.
but it was like, it gave you like a little bit of a little bit of relief. And then the girls spoke, and they had funny stories and things to share, which kind of helped too. It's like, okay, they're going to be okay. Like, the family's going to be, it's not a good day, but they're gonna be okay.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Erin's remembered for her cult comment, which still sticks with us, that she, said the fire department's kind of like a cult. You guys kind of live together and you dress the same. And so it's funny now, like anytime we see a fire department plate or union sticker, my kids are like, cult.
Cult,
Like,
cult member.
That's what we call
fair.
it.
That's very
and then,
fair.
Erin also had said that, her dad wanted / thought he was Mexican, and that stuck around for a long time too. That still comes back. Yeah. He was not Mexican at all.
Right.
Not at all.
Not even close.
No.
The between the funerals to the memorials, it is. I mean, no pun intended. Like, it's like drinking through a fire hose.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, just from the little bit that we played on our end, we'd get the phone calls like, all right, you want to do this one? Do you want to do this one? Do you want to do this one? And for the longest time, we're like, yes, we're going to be there. Mm-hmm. And at a certain point, you can see everybody. It's like, hey, we got another one. What do you want to do? Mm-hmm. And you can see it, like, maybe they bite their lip, but they look at the ground because it takes a toll.
Yeah, no, it does. And
how do you get through that?
Well, you don't do all of them. The family can't do all of them either. There's certain things that we just had to say, no, I'm sorry. It's a school night. I'm not going to drive the kids out for, and whatever organization it wanted to be, whether it was like a Knights of Columbus or a Lions Club or whatever. There's everybody wants to do something to honor the family and the person. It's like, well, right now honoring me is letting me have dinner at home with my kids, and somebody else can go do this because we are exhausted. Yeah. And my kids, the little ones, finally said to me at one point, like, do we have to go? Just whatever the event was. And I was like, no, but tell me why. Let's talk about it. And they're like, because we're sad. We don't need to be reminded that we're sad. Or people assume that, like, oh, you poor things. And they just didn't like the whole, the attention of it. Like the pity, they didn't want people to pity them. And we kind of shared, I guess, a similar philosophy on it, that we're going to be stronger in it and just keep our heads up and try to work for change, as opposed to being sad and taking this attention like, oh, we're victims for the rest of our life. This terrible thing happened to us and that's who we are now. It's like, no, this terrible thing happened to us and we're going to make sure it doesn't happen to somebody else. Like, that was kind of our mantra, instead of just being, little balls of tears. But in some ways it kind of, everybody around you is doing that. They're all crying. They're all trying to remind you that you're supposed to be sad and miserable. And it's like, it is a lot to go through. And, I had Nate cremated. So we didn't do any kind of like burial. There was nothing, there was no marker. There was no thing that anybody else could go to. So I think one of the things that I've heard from some of the guys was helpful after the fact was, about 9 months later, I did a private event at Delaney Gardens in their Fallen Heroes Garden. And we did bury a portion of his ashes there, put a marker down for it. He's on the wall there. And it was like, okay, I'm handing back some of this to you guys now. I don't expect you to come to every event. So his shifts that, like you're saying, the department would show up en masse to these different things for us. And it's like, we don't want to do them as much as you don't want to do them. You can come and pay your respects privately and have this place. If you want to come talk to Nate, or if you want to come leave flowers or whatever, then you've got this place that you can come do this. And we don't all need to be at this memorial together to make it happen. And you're still honoring us. And it's nice when we do go there and we find coins or remnants of flowers or other things that people have come and visited and left, beer bottles on occasion. It's nice to see people that are actually finding some peace and some solace in that too, and without having to be drugged through the ringer for it. But it's hard to say, because it's the tradition of it all, right? There's that. There's the bagpipes. There's the memorials, there's the flags, and I could have my own UN flag courtyard at this point with all the flags that we have. And, we say that as a joke, but we know why. We know why they do it. But it's, again, when you're not, it wasn't our life before, and now it is your life. And it's just all those reminders around you and the different events and things. Some of them are just harder than others.
And I think, definitely there were some we didn't go to, but it's almost like part of the transitioning from the fire wife to the widow. Once you start going to a couple of memorials, sometimes you start to meet other survivor families. And so in some ways then, like, especially for the kids and even for us, sometimes we look forward, maybe it's another memorial, but we know that we're going to see a new friend that we made, or the kids are going to see their new friends that they've made. That definitely lightened the burden. There's something really special about seeing the kids come together and it doesn't matter age, right? So there's a group of kids that are kind of in the circle. So like Celeste kids, my kids, there's a group from Philadelphia area and some other Maryland folks that we regularly end up places. And the kids all have like text messages and they keep in touch. And when you get those kids together, it's like that space where they know nobody's gonna ask them like where their dad's at, or say anything mean to them about their dad not being there, or is this fully safe, comfortable space where they can just be kids again.
That's a good point.
And
the kids don't have to tell their story to anybody. Their stories are all the same. So it's already a level playing field for them, where they're not coming to say, oh, I'm here because my dad died. Like, well, my dad died too, so we're all in the same we're all in the same boat. And they don't need to like relive that part of it. They can just move right on to the friend stuff and the fun stuff. Because you think that, and this is like recently, this has been an issue with my little kids, the comments, like Sarah's saying, like at school, and it's like, why do kids have to be so mean to each other? And they'll get the comments in 5th grade and 3rd grade from classmates about, oh, well, where's your dad at? Like, oh, your dad's dead. You can't tell you're gonna go tell your dad about this? Oh, that's right, you can't because your dad's dead. It's like, well, why would you say that to a kid? And it's tough. It's tough for them because like they understand that it's mean at this age, and how do you address that with them? It's like, we've tried to hit the high road and be, maybe they just have their own problems at home and they're just like kind of projecting that on you. Like, I don't know, but it's not right. It's not fair. In some cases, they won't even tell people their story. They'll just be like, oh yeah, they won't even talk about their dad because it's easier for them to not have to get into the people feeling sorry for them. So if they meet new people, they might just say, oh yeah, my dad won't be here. They don't say to the person, like, he won't be here because he's gone. Oh, he just won't be here. And it's like, wow, ask, why did you say it like that? Well, because I don't want to share my story with them. Like, I don't know them well enough to share my story. It's like, okay, well, that's your story then. That's
much
your
more
way.
intelligent than we give them credit for sometimes,
And resilient and strong and all the things. And I don't know if it's, circumstantial, but regardless, they've got it in there somewhere. And it's, it's important. Like, there'll be some kick-ass adults because of it.
And I guess the other thing that, depending on the memorials, we're kind of we don't have to travel as much, being where we're geographically located, like National Fallen Firefighters Memorials and all those events right here. But, when we went, Josh just was added to the, and Kenny were both added to Colorado this past September. And so, we went out there, but I made sure, like, we went for a week and we did stuff and because again, like, yes, it's sad. Yes, we're still sad. Yes, some mornings I wake up and I'm really sad, and some nights I don't sleep because I'm sad, but like, I can't be sad all the time. And so I've got to, and the kids can't be sad all the time. Like, we have to be, so we try to make the best of things. And so, that turned out, it's just like it's like so weird. Like, sometimes you're like, how is this my life? Like, how am I on vacation? I mean, it wasn't vacation, but kind of feels like a vacation.
Colorado's a very special, interesting place for that.
If you're going on a trip, you're packing your bag, it's during school, so it feels like a vacation, and you go, and they have all of the people in the department that were their dad's good friends. And they're all with them, and we're all traveling. And it's this very weird, like, why are we on vacation with all these people? I mean, because it's not vacation, but it wound up being, I guess what I'm trying to say is we tried to make the best out of the bad situation. Like we try to always find something positive that we can take away from it. So, we went to Pikes Peak with 25 of our fire department friends. Yeah. We had a snowball fight, and it was Tom Coe's 50th birthday on the train coming back. So, yeah, you just, Yeah. And say no to the memorials when it is too much. But.
No, I really appreciate you all saying that. Like, it's okay to say no. And yeah, Colorado, I know for us and our families, that was really nice. It's an incredible event. I'll be out there again this September for Richard Blankenship. He's been out of the wall. And it was a interesting bit of closure for us in that, like, we hiked Manitou Incline, and it was like that shared struggle, and it was a little bit of coming together that gave us a little bit more peace. It's a super just well-run event, and they do a phenomenal job, but it's a long week.
It's a long week, but I think that when they balance the events, like you've got the pipes and the drums there, but it's this awesome parade, and it's and they're coming into the restaurants and the bars, and it's like it's a little bit different than when you're standing graveside hearing Amazing Grace played versus hearing it in the street and having people come to the windows and all more of a just that the tone is different, which
it's more
makes
of a wake feeling than
it's more celebration.
A celebration, exactly. Those are the nice ones to do versus
getting into. I swear I'm getting on the back end of this. I know we're going. Okay. Something you mentioned with the kids that I really want to dig in on is they are so much more intelligent and resilient than we give them credit for, but we also don't want to take that for granted.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how have you gone about best balancing that, because you want them to be amazing human beings, which I have no doubt they will be, and then also not like I said, take that for granted and giving them that support where they probably need it most, and maybe they're trying to tighten that up a little too much.
It's a struggle. Celeste and I have talked about this. Like, there's no age that it's a good age, right? So, on the one hand, her kids don't have the memories that my kids have, but my kids were a little bit older, and they do have those memories. But it's like because of that, because if they were older, it's been a lot more of a struggle here. And that's not to take away from Celeste's kids. They're going to have different struggles at different times.
Fortunately, my kids don't know how big their hearts should have been broken.
Yeah. I mean, but they will. They will as they get older.
Yeah, maybe it'll hit them as they get older.
Yeah. But for my girls, it continues to be a struggle. And I continue to struggle with, am I doing the right thing? And am I providing them the resources?
Mm-hmm.
We've had some very rough patches.
Sure.
My kids have.
One of the first conversations that Sara and I had, because I had gone through this, the older boys were Nate's stepkids. Alex left for college a month after Nate died. And Nate was kind of instrumental in pushing him to go to the school he wanted to go to and pursuing the line of study he wanted. He's a teacher now, and Nate was all about that. And he was like, you got to do this. Like, we'll do whatever we can to make it happen for you. Even if it meant like passing up a wrestling scholarship to go someplace else. So it was like, if he's going to go to a different route and go to Salisbury, then we're going to help you pay for it. However we can help you, because you need to do this. You're going to be good at this. So I had to force him to go to school. He didn't want to. I'm not going to leave you. I'm like, nope, you got to go. Nate wanted you to go. He believed in you. You got to go do this. Gavin will be here with me. And that first year, I put a lot of adult stuff on Gavin. He caught a lot of shrapnel that was not his, but because I couldn't put it on the little kids. And if I was having a bad day, because you're waiting. Nate died in July. I didn't have an autopsy report until October. I didn't have death certificates until like November. All these things that you're waiting for, and the processes you go through, and then the things that happen along the way. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. You're still reliving it because it hasn't ended yet. And I put a lot of things on him, and I assumed all along that he was okay, because he and Nate had a kind of like a butting heads. They were a lot alike. They were stubborn in the same ways. And so I just assumed, because he's your stepdad and you two were always like at each other in some way, that he was going to be okay with all of it. he wasn't okay, but he was okay for me. Like, he was being strong and taking it for me because he knew that I needed a punching bag. I needed somebody to be mad at. I needed somebody that was there. And he was there with me that next year for the full year. And he ended up not, we talked about it since, but it was, I feel bad about it now looking back. And so one of the first things when I first talked to Sara, one of our first conversations, I found how older girls were and how they were handling things. And that's the thing that I said, don't, because Erin was already swooping in, her oldest daughter Erin was already swooping in to take care of her, take care of Maddie, do the thing. I was like, you have to stop that now and get her somebody to help her, because you'll fall into this. Like, she's a caretaker, she's going to fall into this mode and she's not taking care of herself. Like, make sure Erin's taking care of herself, because I made that mistake with Gavin and I didn't push him to take care and deal with his own emotions, and ended up, a couple years later having to work through it with him. But I think that's, the kids want to protect and they want to do what they can and be strong. And that's how she processed some of it, I think, too.
Yeah. And I mean, we've done therapy, individual therapy, still doing individual therapy. Which is also like just another one of those things, though, right? Like, now I have to drive to therapy appointments once a week. Like,
Another thing on the calendar.
Yeah, it's another thing on the calendar. And, the kids have done several different grief camps. Camp Jamie, locally here in Frederick County, they participated in. The National Fallen Firefighters Foundation does a kids camp that they've gone to. I'll just kind of plug that a little bit here.
Please.
I would love to see... each kid gets assigned a big buddy at that camp. They try to get people that are fire department related to volunteer to be those big buddies. And that program always needs more people. And I'm always a little disappointed that, again, given where we are geographically, how close we are to National Fallen Firefighters Foundation and the Memorial, that we don't have more local people signing up. The camps do move. This year it's Indianapolis. Last year it was New Jersey. The year before that was Colorado Springs. But it would be great to see more people participating and helping in that. And then there's another camp, experience camps, with another grief camp that the kids have gone to. And so we do those things. And like I said, them being with the other kids has been really helpful. Anytime they, are with other kids that have lost their parent, that's really helpful. And a lot of it, I don't know, and I'm praying a lot still. Like, and it's really hard at the teenage, because sometimes you're like, is this behavior because their dad's not here? Is this behavior because they're an asshole teenager? And it's like, you don't want to guess wrong. Like, on the one hand, I want to be like, no, like, I'm not putting up with any of this.
Right.
Like, no. But on the other hand, you're like, oh, but wait, if this is the grief, and you can't tell.
The parental guilt is like already there, right?
Yeah,
like all the ways. And then you've got to double down with like, okay, is this because I'm doing something wrong, because their dad's gone, because I didn't do this for them before, like whatever, or like you said, or are they just being jerks because
it's
hormones.
They are, right.
And now too, for me, having to wear both hats, that I have to be the like caretaker and the disciplinarian, is really hard, and that's been really hard for them too. I think before, like, Josh and I took turns being good cop, bad cop, right? Like, and it depended what it was, right? I mean, it just naturally happened. But some things the kids knew, like, no way is dad going to ever, mom will get less upset about it. And then some things, dad's going to lose his mind. And when dad lost his mind, they'd come run to me and I'd be like, I'll be all right, just, give him some space or whatever. And now that I have to try to, like, simultaneously wear both of those hats, it's hard. And TBD. Hope I don't screw it up.
I mean, what little bit I can relate, just being a dad also, is there's so much fear surrounding parenting, right? And we're all in this together. It's our first time. I think I'm going to butcher the quote, but like, when you look at our parents, it was their first time. It's we only get one shot at this, and we're all figuring it out. And then just to add the layer of what you all have gone through, it's a heavy burden, but it sounds like you're doing as many things you possibly can, so I hope that you're also gentle with yourselves. It's tough. I appreciate you saying the thing about the fallen firefighters, because it is right up the street. I know they do amazing things. I don't know what I don't know. I didn't even know they had that camp. So I'll definitely check that out. That's really great to hear that they have those things. But like you said, we'll have to get that message out there more. Kind of in the similar vein, I've experienced this with some things in my family with death. What are some things that just should not be said? I feel like you two you're not gonna pull any punches. I've experienced that. Sometimes I think people are very quick to say something because maybe it's just a generally accepted or said thing, but they're not actually thinking about the context. And I could give examples, but I'll just set that up for you all. There's things that just should not be said, asked, or vice versa. Like, what things do you need in those moments?
I mean, this could be a very long conversation. Some of the worst things are the, the one that really pisses me off particularly is the, everything happens for a reason.
Yes,
or,
that's exactly what I'm getting at.
or God calls the good ones home. And that's why he's not here on earth anymore, is because he gets to go live forever in heaven now where everything's perfect. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Well, then I don't like that God very much, because that God left these 2 kids without a dad. And the God I know wouldn't do that. So, yeah. So those are the comments that got me the worst. I know, like we've said, the kids also hear stuff. One of my kids had a friend equate her horse dying to her dad dying. And we've had people equate their divorce. Their divorce is the same as what we've gone through. Those are the ones that most bother me. There's one particular person, I knew I was going to see this individual, and I thought, she is going to be the one. She is.
Say all the wrong things.
Yep. Yeah. And she actually said the absolute best thing. And her comment was, "What's the worst thing that's been said to you?" That's what she asked me. And I was like, that's a great thing to say. Like, that's like saying something without saying it. And I appreciated that.
Break that ice a little.
We still get all the, you're so strong. And like,
we're exhausted.
Yeah.
We're exhausted. The people, it's inevitable, right? I find myself in the same position too. And when I start to think about like what I've said to people, and it's like, everybody's sorry. We know you're sorry. Like the whole, I'm so sorry this happened. Well, yeah, we are too. Like, it's just an automatic response or thing to say to people. But over the course of a couple of hours, you've heard it 100 times. You're just like, we get it. It's terrible. We know. I think it's more of a what can I bring you dinner? Not saying what can I do for you. It's like, I'm bringing you dinner tomorrow. Is pizza okay?
Just make a decision.
Yeah, just make the decision and just be helpful in a more proactive way versus like what can I do for you? But they're not going to tell you what they really need you to do for them. Just see a need and do it. But yeah, I'm so sorry, or how are you doing? How do you think I'm doing? Like, look at me. Like, how do you think I'm doing? I got my hoodie on backwards. I did that once when the twins were going to kindergarten. Literally a hooded sweatshirt. I put it on backwards. Like, just I don't even know how I made out of the house with it like that.
I apparently had my pants on inside out yesterday.
Oh, nice. It
was yesterday.
For a couple years, it still happens. I mean, I was fresh, but it was like, how did I get all the way home and know that I'm like, I go to look at the pocket. I'm like, the pocket's back here, and this is the hood. This is awesome. But yeah, I mean, it's people will not just project their own emotions onto it, right? And it's just natural. And you get it. We like Sara said, we expect certain things to be said. So you're kind of numb to it at this point. You just don't take it personally. Yeah. But yeah, it is tough. But the religious information, or the people that want to send you books about their religion, it's like, don't assume that we have all the same beliefs and backgrounds there. Yeah. And then we get it. We're all sorry. We don't want to be in this position either. So
I like another byproduct of all of this, at some point someone let my personal identifiable information get out. And I know that because I've now paid a service to go scrub the internet and get it so that when you put my cell phone number in, it doesn't give you my home address anymore, because it was. But yeah, I get people, some lady in Texas sending me Bible verses, like,
oh goodness,
sending me books. I mean, some of it, there was a church from like, I don't know, where, Kansas or something, that the ladies had made little angel pens and sent them to us to give to people, and that was sweet. Like that I appreciated.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the other thing I would say is, though, like, even now, you know, like Celeste said, especially with her kids who don't have all those memories, we feel excluded sometimes, or people don't talk to us, and I don't know if it's because they don't know what to say, or they're like, I think a lot of times people think widow, and there's like that silent movie image that comes up of, like, you know,
the black, it's like a scarlet letter
or
almost.
staying home and just, you know, there with the photograph next to us instead of out enjoying the things. I think to that point, the first year the twins were in kindergarten, and school went past Father's Day that year. Usually school lets out before Father's Day, and having the teacher call me to ask, we're going to do a Father's Day crafting class. I can send your two to the library, so they don't need to be here for it. So it was like they were going to exclude the kids from something because of their. I'm like, no, they can still make something and for their dad. Like, it doesn't have to be a separate thing. Like, don't section them off and call them out for it.
Yes.
Don't assume that we don't want to be included in certain things.
Yeah. I'm glad you're able to catch that on the front end. I don't mean to liken it to somebody that's like gotten into sobriety, but a similar analogy though is like, I feel like a lot of people like, hey, once I stop drinking, like I stopped getting the invites out kind of thing. Do you feel like there's like a parallel there?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there is. I mean, like, you know, again, some of your friends, you will lose people along the way because they're sensitive to the idea that their spouse could be gone, and they just can't relate to your position or what they would do. So it's uncomfortable for them to have you around because it reminds them that you know this could be their life too. So you kind of lose some of those opportunities that you would have been doing things as a couple with other families. It's now you're just one person, and it's like, oh, it's going to be too much for them. We're not going to invite them because of whatever. And you're like, hey, I saw these pictures on Facebook.
Still here.
We were home. We would have enjoyed to get out and do something. But you just kind of get excluded from some things because you're not part of that dynamic anymore, or it makes them uncomfortable to kind of deal with it.
And don't assume that, like, because we're not asking for things, that we don't need things. So, like, you know, if I have a couple people who will check in with me and be like, hey, do you need something? But I also get, like, we get tired of, I'm capable. I don't want to ask for people to help me and do stuff all the time. But sometimes I do need help. But then it's like, so if you're interested, like, keep offering. Just because you're told no once or twice or three times doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way. Like, there may be that fifth time that I'm like, oh my gosh, you're my hero. Please come help me.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely a question I had, is how to best support. And it seems like just I think you said it, like, if you see a need, just act on it in some way. Like, make sure it's within the parameters that you want and said, but like, just, it's so easy to say, you know, how can I help? But that's it. The human element is, we will shy back on that. Like, no, I don't need anything. I'm a strong, capable individual.
Yeah, I mean, too,
you
like,
need it, though.
You've been in the initial couple days, weeks, whatever. You're so used to having so many people around you that when you do feel like at that moment where you're just alone in your house again, you kind of don't want to be bothered with somebody coming to shovel your driveway or bring you meals or whatever. So you can push people away at that stage. Like, I'm going to put a cooler outside. If you want to bring something, just put it in the cooler. Like, as opposed to, like, don't bring me food. But I'm not going to tell you what to bring, just whatever. It's fine. But yeah, just don't make it work for me. Like, don't
create more work.
Don't create more work where I don't, I just didn't even have that in my day. That idea of that in my day. If you can just drop in and do something, then awesome. But if I'm not going to ask for the help either. It's more of a, I just want to be left alone sometimes.
And we can also take donations for Phoenix Advocates, our nonprofit. That helps too.
I was actually getting ready to kind of close with that. Is there, like, you have a website, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you have a place where you can donate right on there.
Yep, there's the merchandise and the donation information's all in the same area of the webpage. So there's, like I said, we've got shirts and coins and things, stickers that you can receive as
can-
part of your donation, or you can just make a donation.
Yeah, and you can bypass all that and just make a donation.
Yeah, and if you have a business and you want to do like a sponsorship event, like we've had just recently, a restaurant in Ellicott City did an event for First Responders Day on May 1st, where they a portion of the proceeds were going to both the to us and then to the Howard County Police. So it was a joint effort there.
Cool.
Things like that. Like we do some things with some of the breweries and stuff, which are nice. It's a low impact way. People are going to go out and eat regardless. So it's a nice way for businesses to help support it, and it draws people through too. And all of it goes back to us doing the work that we want to do. So getting out there and spreading the information that we can, helping support that travel and those initiatives for us. It's I think it's a good cause.
That absolutely. I've somewhat. I don't mean to insert myself too much here. I've somewhat gotten a front row seat to the changes that you have played a major role in. One of those is the CSST regulation. Can you just give us the cliff notes on that, because that's a pretty important piece of legislation that you.
I'll let Sara speak to that when she's again she enjoys the political and legal stuff more than I do.
Yeah.
Yep. So the was the Flynn Laird Act that we passed in Maryland in 2022. We went back this year because we've actually learned that even though that was huge progress, it's not something that's been done in any other state. We discovered there's some loopholes there. So we want to fix those loopholes, and we also want to tighten up the legislation. We knew even when that first bill passed that it wasn't as strong as we want it to be as far as what kind of CSST is permitted to be used. So we came back this year, worked on it. We were not successful. We're going to come back next year. And that's another way people can help. Right now we're focusing on Maryland. So if you're a Maryland resident or if you're a Maryland firefighter, come January, we're going to be back in Annapolis, and we need people to show up. So we'll put it on our social media. We'll share, here's the email addresses and phone numbers. Please call these delegates or these senators, write letters, make phone calls, whatever. Or sometimes if we get close enough, we'll say, we need as many uniforms as we can get to come stand in Lawyers Mall, so that when they're making their way to session, they see everybody out there with the signs.
Yep.
And again, this is not for us. It doesn't matter what the legislation, how it changes, it's never changing anything for us. We're not getting our people back. So I get a little frustrated sometimes when I'm like, here we are, and we do use the foundation to get the word out, but since we're a 501c3, none of the money can be used towards anything political.
Oh, okay.
So
we're not lobbying or doing things.
Yeah. So anytime we're in Annapolis and doing stuff in Annapolis, it's all on our own dime.
Yes, okay.
But having that support, writing those letters, we need that. We need to tighten this up because it is still a danger. And the product, even if we pass the legislation, require the better CSST products, these products are going to be in houses for 100 plus years. And
it's akin to aluminum wiring or other
lead
things
paint
that are known to be issues, but that gradually has to
You said you're also kind of doing some data collection. Is there a formal process where if anybody runs these fires or is exposed to it in some way that they can help get that information to you?
So we have two websites. Our main website will get you to everything that you need, which is phoenixadvocates.org. There's a link on there to our data collection project, but there's a direct link, which is lightningfiredata.com will take you. It's a Google sheet.
Okay.
And we are collecting data on future or present fires, past fires, and we're taking data from all 50 states. And Canada too, because this product is also a problem in Canada.
Okay.
And we've had some conversations here this morning about, they're not being investigated, but we've got to document them to have the impact to raise the awareness within the fire service on what a problem they are, and then also for to get change, to get legislation, we have to have this data and information. So it's really important, and we'll share that information. Kind of my dream is that we get this stuff to move in Maryland, and then that folks will contact us from other states, and we'll be able to go there and help them draft legislation and do it, and then I can hand them a bucket of data and say, here's your data. So
Awesome.
Yeah, we know the weather is changing, right? We know that the storms are getting more aggressive, that the storm seasons are lasting longer and coming earlier. We know we've already had at least one CSST fire confirmed in here in Maryland this year already. And it was the Mount Airy fire about a month ago now.
And we've had just similar close calls like we mentioned just last week. They're still happening.
The cloud to ground lightning in this area is, it's not going away, and it's going to keep getting stronger as climate change happens. And we have the weather data, we have the lightning data. We know how much CSST has been sold and installed. It's just a matter of putting it back together now. Where are the risks happening? Like, where are these known incidents happening? And when you show somebody their information, it's like, well, you live in Florida. Here's what's happening in Florida. Like, oh, this is a big deal. But they don't have basements. They're like, oh, we're fine. We don't have basements in Florida, so we don't have to worry about this. Like, well, no, you still do, because it still causes these other issues in your homes beyond just somebody falling through the floor to the basement. Right.
Yeah.
And Maryland is not even in the top 10 for lightning strikes.
Yeah.
By states.
Wow.
We're not even in the top 10.
Okay.
So that tells you how many of these fires, are really happening nationwide.
Yeah, that's an interesting piece of data. I'll make sure to provide links to
Yep.
and all
Thank
this
you.
to make it easily accessible. Are there any events coming up that you have scheduled?
We will be, so we actually will be Monday with Adam St. John and Craig and Jeremy, who Sarah referenced earlier, at an event in Ocean City for a training there. I think it's a regional investigators.
The Maryland
arson investigators.
IAAI.
Okay.
And then we also will be at the Maryland State Firemen's Association convention in June.
Yep, June.
So we'll be there. We'll have a booth at that with T-shirts and coins on hand. And the kids will be helping sell things and harass
Great.
people. And then we have 2 classroom sessions there. So we have both the CSST 2-hour presentation that Sarah and I can do, and then another session for the line of duty death planning and considerations from the survivor standpoint session. So those are both on the Monday of that week, the first day of the classroom sessions there in Ocean City.
Yeah,
So we'll
and
be
they're
there.
great. If anybody that's listening, can they put in a formal request if they want to hear you speak on these things?
Yes,
That's
yes.
the
So we're
goal,
working
right?
on putting a form on our webpage to kind of kick that off.
Yeah.
But contact information is out there as well. They can just simply email us or find us on our Facebook page and send us a message there. If they have a need, if they want to bring this to their community, to their firehouse, either of the presentations, we can work
Awesome.
that out with them.
Awesome. And then
And also, we were kind of going around the whole idea of like the legislation for CSST specific and the issues there specific, but back to the benefits, back to all of it. There's other reasons firefighters are dying. So we've got cancers, we've got illnesses. There's a lot of disparity in how those deaths are handled across the board, and there's a whole other set of challenges and issues there. So as we've gotten into this a bit more, involved with the larger communities of first responders in general, we've realized there's a need for that education and awareness to be pushed out there too. So as of just recently, working with another one of our friends, we've been fortunate to become close with, fortunately unfortunate,
Right.
how do you say that? Unfortunately fortunate. Jen Alcorn from Frederick County, her husband was a city police officer.
Frederick City Police Officer.
Okay.
He died with medical line of duty death. And so working with her, we're going to be bringing her into the foundation too, and kind of expanding the law enforcement side with it, just as a public safety officer, first responder in general, some of the issues that we can kind of roll into, because the planning elements and things, those are important across all the communities. You guys are out there putting yourselves in danger frontline for a lot of different reasons, whether it's fire, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's EMS. There's a lot of things where the stories intersect. So I think her part of it adds a lot of value to it, and then bringing that medical component, as well as some of the cancer stories that we've been able to, again, unfortunately learn from our larger survivor community, and how those are handled, and the incredibly long time that those take to resolve as well. So
yes, yeah.
I mean, in Cat Blankenship's case,
Yep,
it
that's
took
why we'll
years
be
for
out in
that to be
Colorado.
classified. So
Yes.
as a line of duty death. So those, and the families are fighting those fights, behind the scenes for all those years too. And it's a stressful thing for them to go through, having to prove that your loved one died because of their job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I really appreciate you saying that, because it is, it's this multi-pronged approach. Sometimes everybody's fighting their own fights, but there's all the same fights, or similar fights, I should say. But they're all kind of fighting their own battles at times, and probably feel like they're on an island.
Yep, exactly. And then again, until you're officially brought into that process too, you are kind of held at arm's length from it. So, you're not invited to the memorials. You're not part of it. Your loved one's not honored, and you're left to feel like, well, they were important too. Like they gave their life in service, and we know what we sacrificed for this, and now we're continuing to sacrifice because we're kind of marginalized by.
There's otherism there that's present, unfortunately.
Yep.
Yeah, and then there's other legislative work to be done here. I actually was asked and testified for the PTSD bill that they tried to pass in Maryland, so that you'd be able to get, the first responders would be eligible to get workman's comp for PTSD, so they could actually be off from their job and get treated, and then also so that those deaths can be recognized and honored in the appropriate way. So that's something that Phoenix is also looking to do. We all kind of have little areas of things that we want to work on, but and also the cancer deaths. Even though none of us lost somebody from cancer, we again are in that community now, and when we sit in a room with 18 other widows, and only 4 out of the 18 died from like an actual fire death or a scene related death, and everybody else is like cancer and cardiac. I don't know, I think Celeste and I and Clara and Jen all feel the same way, that like enough's enough. Like the widowed, the family, the survivor family that are left to deal with these things have not had a voice. And it is time to have a voice. And again, while most of the changes we're trying to make will not impact us directly, like we know it's wrong. We know that these things should not be happening to these families. You shouldn't have to fight these battles. You shouldn't have to, do these things to have your loved one honored and to get the benefits that you're due.
Yeah. I mean, absolute selflessness there. And I don't mean to like fluff you up here, but like, you are fighting, like you said, at times you're exhausted, and this is exhausting work, and you're doing it, and you're not going to see the benefit, but it's for the benefit of our communities and our professions and our families. And that's very powerful. So thank you for that. As we wrap this up, when I go out to present on some of these experiences, I always make sure to mention Commit Your Six, because I thought it's really powerful mindset shift, and you can see people kind of rock back in their heels when I talk about it, and that's directly from you. If as we close this out, would you kind of give us the nod for Commit Your Six?
Yeah, no, sure. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that was important to me was protecting Nate's legacy in a positive way, and it was not taking July 23rd as this horrible day that this horrible thing happened to so many people. It's no, this person lived, and their life and their career ended that day, but some of the things that they stood for are things that we can keep doing to honor them, and training was one of those things. So at the very first training day, I had been handed the ISRB report the day or two before, had gone through it, and I had been waiting to have the timeline and have all the things kind of laid out in some way. And as I'm looking through it, I'm looking at information that I had known, things I hadn't known, all looking at that moment from the moment Nate fell through the floor to the moment he stopped moving, stopped breathing, everything just kind of shut down. That 6 minute, approximate 6 minute time span that had passed there. And, we know that he was trying to make radio transmissions. He was still trying to scoot himself to where he could, to hopefully get away from the situation, working to self-rescue while waiting for, the real rescue to come in. It was you think about those 6 minutes for him and what he must have been thinking and going through. And it's hard. But it's one of those things where it's like all the things that he stood for as he went, if you can just take 6 minutes of your day and just think about that yourself, like whether you are in a first responder capacity or just even myself, I'll stop and just think about things like that. What can I do for 6 minutes today that's going to make me better tomorrow or the next day? And then over the course of a year, if you spend 6 minutes each day doing something, you've got like an investment in yourself that you can just feel good about and know that you've done something positive. And even if it's just having a conversation with someone, like we talked about a couple of things here today, that those are difficult conversations. But if you're a 6-minute conversation with a coworker can tell you a lot about them. You can help them with some of these things that maybe they're not thinking of. You can read an article, you can do a workout, you can do something for 6 minutes to make your life better. And it's kind of like that challenge that I put out there was just take 6 minutes each day and do it for Nate. Do it because he was a consummate student of his job, and he'd be doing it for himself if he was still here to do it. And he proved that to the very end, just scrapping and clawing his way through for those last 6 minutes of his life.
Yeah, that is incredibly raw, but super powerful. And like I said, whenever I do have the opportunity to speak on that, I make sure to throw that in, because you see the shift, a physical shift in people. So it's a very powerful message. And 6 minutes, I just did some writing on this, like just ballpark math. That's a semester in college. If you did 6 minutes every single day, like when you do the math on that, like you said, that is an incredible investment.
Yeah, you can look at it at the end of the year and you get all these certificates and patches and things along the way for your classes. You do a 2-hour refresher for whatever. It's like, take all your 6 minutes and add them up over the course of a year, and you make yourself something for that and be proud of it, because it's it's important. It's an investment for sure, and it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah,
and it's easy. It's low impact. It's it's a commercial break. It's
right. Right. Just do something.
Yeah,
make yourself better. Is there anything that I have missed that you all enjoy speaking on, or maybe not? Maybe enjoy is not the right word, but you make sure wants to get out there.
I mean, I think you covered everything. So we've learned to enjoy some of this, right? We enjoy it when we know that it's impactful and helpful. It's a choice that we make to do it. We could very easily just go about our lives and tuck back and not be out there. It would be a lot easier some days just to be that person instead. So, if we choose to put ourselves out there and share their stories and do the work that we do. So, we know that it's going to be hard, and we've accepted part of that. I think we kind of talked earlier, it's surreal in a way, because this wasn't part of our life before. Like, we weren't this immersed in the fire service, the fire culture, all of it. And we're meeting with people, talking to people, doing things like this with you that we never would have done before. But we do it because we want to find a way to honor them and to make things better. And that's the root of it. So if we get to meet people on the way that we know that they read their books, they idolized them, they followed their material, and then they never got to meet them, but now we're sitting at a table with them, or we're presenting with them at a national conference. It's still surreal, but it's like you feel like they're with you in some way too, which makes it nice for us too.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you have absolutely taken time out of your day. I can't thank you enough for doing this. It's a massive honor, and you have done so much more for the fire service through what you've experienced than so many people that I work alongside of. And that's not me throwing shade. It's the reality of you have used this part of your pain for progress and helping us out and families and so many other people. And it's been truly impactful. And I've had a front row seat of some sorts for that. So thank you. Very sincerely. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.